So, Professor, I have a question when it comes to the deadlines, because as we know, this is becoming almost a never-ending story. When you look at the actual legal deadline, would that be December 31st, or do you see a way that talks can continue beyond and go into the new year?
Well, talks can always continue, of course, but December 31st is the deadline. That's the point at which EU law stops applying to the United Kingdom, and that new arrangements have to be found. This could, for example, also be, if a deal is reached just like a couple of days before that deadline, there could be a provisional application of that deal. But the old state of the law, which was the continued application of EU law throughout the transition, that definitely ends on the 31st of December. And that means a lot of change in all aspects of economic relationships.
Right, and I want to pick up on that because the timeline is crucial here. So what you say is there could be a deal by December 31st that's not ratified, but would still be applied nonetheless. And what happens in the meantime? You know, if the leaders agree to a deal, but the European Parliament doesn't ratify that deal until, let's say, January 15th, what happens in those 15 days? There's a lot of uncertainty for business.
Well, so the trade side, the pure trade side of a deal, which would be, for example, the fact that there are no tariffs and no quotas, which is what the deal would include, that can be applied provisionally, and that doesn't have to be necessarily approved by the European Parliament. It can be done by the EU Council of Ministers on the EU side, who can decide to provisionally apply the agreement and give more time to the European Parliament, for example, to look at the agreement and to get it finally ratified. That's the position on the EU side.
Right. So there could be a bridge, a legal bridge in between that. But I do want to clarify something, because I do hear there's been a lot of speculation that perhaps we could enter a no deal, then the European countries would then negotiate on a one-on-one basis, or could be a series of mini deals. Is that doable from a legal perspective?
Well, the law is complicated, and there's a political element as well, of course. It does seem pretty clear that the EU and the EU member states are really keen on remaining united also in the new year in the event of no deal. So there might be legally scope for doing mini deals between the UK and individual member states, particularly the ones who are closest and, you know, which constitutes the trade border. But whether those states will be willing to do so is really rather unclear. The position seems to be that they will want to continue negotiating through the EU and the European Commission.
Okay, and Professor, there's a question I want to put to you on this concept and this idea of sovereignty. The Spanish foreign minister yesterday said something that was really interesting, in which she said, when you look at a trade deal, this is about dealing with the interdependence that you have. It's not about asserting your independence. That's by definition not doable in a trade deal. How do you get around the two? The Prime Minister is clear that he wants something in the trade deal that makes it clear the country is independent. At the same time, you have to manage the trade relationship. What's the legal leeway there?
Well, I mean, it's finding that balance between maintaining your sovereignty and cooperating with others. I mean, obviously, when you commit to cooperate with others and you make that legally binding, you limit to some degree your sovereignty. I mean, that's indisputable. I'm sure the UK government would recognize that as well. I think it's really about finding that sort of balance between how much sovereignty the UK wants to keep and how well it wants to manage the interdependence. And of course, no deal would mean kind of absolute sovereignty in the relationship with Europe, because there wouldn't be any commitment other than the withdrawal agreement, which was concluded last year. But obviously, it would also mean that the interdependence would be very difficult to manage, and that each side would simply apply its own rules, which would make everything a lot more difficult.
Right, and the Prime Minister says, deal or no deal, the UK will do well. When it gets to January 1st, this is not going to be doomsday. It's not going to be chaos. From your perspective, when you get to January 1st, given all the uncertainty that we know there is already and exists already, what does that look like?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm a law professor. I'm not an economist, but I'm worried about it. I'm worried also about the kind of unknowns, the things which might happen, the sort of negative cycle which might be started by the fact that the relationship sort of breaks down, that trade becomes immensely difficult. This may have an effect on investment. It may be run on the pound. I mean, I don't want to go too far myself in thinking of this doomsday scenario, but it is something, it is something which starts on the 1st of January, which I'm not sure anyone really has a full sense of what it might result in and what kind of economic consequences might gradually develop. So we've seen that crashes are possible,
Right.
and yeah,
Right.
we'll just have to wait and see.